Okay, here we have part 2 of the Gundam Mudrock. So this is the, once again, this is the P-Bandai exclusive or P-Bandai exclusive HGUC Gundam Mudrock or Gundam Unit 6. So in part 2 we'll be talking about the incomplete version. But before I go on to the extra details, so let's talk about the Gundam Mudrock one more time. So basically the Gundam Mudrock, the way how it was made is basically there was this pilot name, I believe his name was like Agar or something like that, and he was in like a tank squad, and he was given the task to make a mobile suit slash Gundam, which I'm not really sure why that was the exact case. I can't remember that, but basically what he did was he analyzed the Gundam RX-78 and found like one major problem. When I mean problem, it's not like a malfunctioning issue. It was basically like this, where if the RX-78 loses its primary weapon, which it could be a bazooka or a beam rifle, the moment the unit loses those weapons, the Gundam itself loses a lot of firepower, because what that means is that if it loses its main weapon, the only thing that the Gundam can use to fight is its Vulcans and its beam saber, which is not enough firepower. And back then, I believe the beam sabers, even today, are considered to be the last resort weapon. So yeah. So when he started to design the Gundam Mudrock, it's basically where even though the Gundam loses its beam rifle or maybe bazooka, it can still fight with extra firepower with its cannons on the back and the grenade launchers on the arm. So even though, let's say, the Gundam Mudrock loses its beam rifle, it still has a good amount of firepower to fight, basically. Alright, so that was basically the simple version of the Gundam Mudrock that I was aware about, or as far like the simplest way I could explain. Okay, so let's get on to the review. So part 1, I talked about the completed version and showed the articulation. So if you're kind of curious about the articulation, please check on part 1. And I'll leave a link in the description below, so you can check out part 1 as well. Okay, so here we have the incompleted version. So basically, it has a more simple looking shoulder, basically a more Gundam Alex-ish looking shoulder, and then we no longer have the extra thrusters on the legs, and yeah, of course, kit-wise, the Gunpla kit-wise, it's pretty much the same quality and same articulation as the completed version, but in terms of the story-wise, I believe. While this was still being in development, the base was being attacked by a few group of Zaku's, I believe. I'm not sure if it was only Zaku's or there were other mobile suits out there, but still, it was being attacked, and for being an emergency, they just decided to launch this out as well. So the problem was that it could still move, but it could only fire its cannon once. So after the first shot or first fire, it could no longer fire its cannon for some reason. Okay. So if you decide to buy only one Gundam Mudrock, keep in mind I bought 2, so which is why I was able to show you guys both versions at the beginning at part 1. If you buy one and decide to go with the incomplete version, this is what you should be ending up with, and you still get the exact same amount of equipment, which is basically the 2 beam sabers, the shield and the shield connector, and then the beam rifle with the beam rifle with the trigger finger. So that should be exactly the same. You should be getting the same equipment as well as the complete version. So what you're supposed to be left over are those, basically the parts for the completed version. So number 1, you get the actual shoulders. As I mentioned, the incomplete versions don't use polycaps on the inside, but this one uses polycaps on the inside. I'm not really sure why, but still they get the job done, so no big deal. And as I mentioned, these yellow parts are all separated pieces. Yeah, these definitely look more tougher and stronger compared to the ones that looks very Alex-ish. And then we get those 2 shoulders, and then here we have the side thrusters, once again, very Alex-ish looking. And here we have the peg that if we have a hole here we could connect it, but this one does not, because those ones are over here. So if you want to go with the completed version, these are the parts or leg armor parts that you'll be using. Obviously the ones with the holes are supposed to go for the outer side so you can connect the thrusters, and these ones are supposed to go in the inside. So once again, if you buy one, it's still possible to swap between the complete and incomplete version, but still being a very big fan of the Gundam Mudrock, I decided to buy 2 of them and build one each. So once again, as I mentioned, these are pretty much the same articulation, and one of the biggest part that I find interesting is the arms, because once again, the Gundam Mudrock is also what I call the Alex syndrome, meaning that for the Gundam Alex, we always see the Gatling guns on the side, but in reality, when you consider that human anatomy, that's not how the human arm really works, because usually if the human arms, the bending points are supposed to be facing front, and that means in the Gatling gun or for the Gundam Mudrock, the grenade launchers on the arm should be showing back or going backwards. But every time we see the Gundam Alex, for example, it's always showing the Gatling guns on the side instead of going on the back. Which, so if we buy like the old HGUC kit, the main problem with that kit is that we would always have to, for example, if you want to have the Gatling guns out, what we need to do is twist the arm and then do this basically. And well, this kit is no different as well, but the thing is that even though we have that, we still have a little bit of bending points right over here. You can see, like, because the lower arm the lower arm itself can only rotate by its own, which means that even it's on the side, we have a nice 90-degree bend. And if we go even forward, let's say if this was the Alex and we have the Gatling gun up front, so it should be the Gatling gun should be in this position, and we can still pull out and still bend a little bit like that. We still have a bending point, so which works pretty well. Of course, if you don't want that, you can always go back to the original position and then have a nice double jointed bend. Alright, so that's definitely one big major aspect of this kit. So I'm hoping that if we do get the NT1 Alex Revive, that kit is going to be amazing. Okay, so now time for the comparison. So here we have the incomplete and complete version. So obviously now the cans may look a little bit different in length. It's just that the angle is different. So let's see the difference. So obviously the main body, the main legs, everything is pretty much the same. The only difference here between the complete and incomplete versions are obviously the legs. The incomplete versions don't have these thrusters on the side, and then on the inside leg they're the same design as the outer legs, while the complete version has these on the outside. Of course, if you plug them out, they are pretty much the same design as the incomplete, but with an extra hole there. And then on the inside legs, we have these extra moldings, while the normal one doesn't. Okay, and then other than that, let's look at the shoulders. The shoulders, once again, the incomplete version is very more Gundam Alex design-ish, while this one is more its own unique and finished design. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the difference. So, of course, spec-wise, the complete version would have more armor, meaning that it has more defense compared to the incomplete version as well. And I believe, once again, I'm not sure how the incomplete version moves around, but in Gundam Battle Operations 2, the Gundam Mudrock actually slides around like the Dom, so it hovers around or something like that. So that's definitely one interesting aspect. And of course, the incomplete version could not fire its cannon more than one time, so obviously that as well. And that's pretty much it for the review. So obviously, if you're a big fan of the Gundam Mudrock like me, definitely grab one. This is one amazing kit that honestly, yeah, sure it's premium Bandai, but these are one of those kits that are worthy of getting it. I mean, I know why this is premium Bandai. It's not like not many people actually talk about this, and you don't really see people mentioning about it as well. So obviously, yeah. And yes, I am aware of the Gundam of the recent announced of premium Bandai Gundam Unit 5, I believe, or Unit 4. I forgot. I keep messing them up. But basically, was the blue mega launcher, hyper mega launcher on it as well. I'm definitely getting that, so you can expect a review from me as well. Hopefully that comes with the also complete and incomplete armor version as well. Anyway, this was the review of the Premium Bandai exclusive HGUC Gundam Mudrock or Gundam Unit 6. HGUC obviously, so if you guys got any questions or requests, leave a comment below. This video will be uploaded the moment I get my channel back, so please stay tuned. Until then, see you guys next time!